Okay, here we go. We've got Unit 5, Topics 9 and 10 in store today. I've got one more to do of these after that, and we will have covered all the stuff reviewed. We've already covered it once, but we've reviewed it before test. We're down to a week now before we test. All right, the global system of agriculture, I'm sorry. A lot of these things are kind of listing and no does to me, it seems like, but we will list them and no duh them all the same. All right, global supply chain. This is a really good example here, rather than trying to explain it in words, just to show it to you. Nutella. If you've ever eaten Nutella, it's kind of like a hazelnut version of peanut butter, kind of chocolatey. So this is their global supply chain. You see, Nutella is owned by these people here, the Ferrero group, whatever, and they're headquartered in Italy. Okay, they got international suppliers around. They're set up, all right, a few other places to help with that. Kind of strange that the closest one is to the United States is clear down here. And then factories, okay, is here in the red, and then the sales offices. Oh wait, I got my suppliers mixed up with my factory. No, that's not strange. Okay, so this green things is where they get the input to go to these red triangles to make the product. Okay, they have sales offices as well, showing their juice. They're all over. You take all that, they're all over the globe there to make this one product. How far away some of these things are from each other. That's the global supply chain. Now, it's not only going to Nutella. Don't try and think, oh, that's about Nutella. No, Nutella is just an example they gave there. So you can do this with any product. You might have to use your imagination, research a little bit, but that's how that works. All right. Next thing is a bit like that here. Better, easier to show than it is to use words. So, commodity dependence. That would be a country that is dependent just on, and I put one-ish commodity here, because sometimes it's a little bit or they're similar. Maybe they're not similar, but it's a little bit more than one. But generally, they don't have a lot of diversity in their economy, especially what they export out of it. So these green places are the places we're talking about right now, because they are the ones with an agricultural product coming out that is the main thing that they're dependent on. And then, as you can see, we got it for energy, which will be mostly oil or natural gas, maybe coal. Actually, coal probably with the minerals. The red people here, silver, gold. This is all mining type stuff there with the minerals. So there you go. Green. We see these things here. I think that Afghanistan green, that's probably drugs, the heroin stuff. Syria, I would have to look that up. And so on and so forth. So that is what that is. All right, if you get too dependent on one thing there, that's a problem. All right, global food distribution networks. This graphic, I want to go and move myself out of the way here, even though it's a little more complicated than what we're really looking at here. Global food distribution network. We've got what they are affected by. Political relationships, right? That's going to be things like taxes, tariffs, regulations, or how well the exporting country and the importing country get along. We're not going to sell a lot of grain to North Korea, even though we end up giving a lot of them whenever they starve their people to death. Usually we find a way to get it over there, even though they hate us. We try to help their people when they're starving, when they let us anyway. Infrastructure. There's, I didn't go over test questions there, but they're kind of all the same. I'll catch it here. Infrastructure, the main thing, the roads and how that kind of works. A big part that I saw when I was looking over test questions with the infrastructure part had to do with like refrigeration cars and the quickness of being able to transport these things to get where they need to go before they rot or before they're no good is a big part that impacted that. And then the patterns of world trade, um, what's in that's basically talking about supply and demand there. When like I would imagine the avocado supply has become very trendy for avocados over the last few years, would affect a lot of that. So to address the test questions there, the things I saw were mostly where and the impacts it has on those other things. Where are these things? What global, the global or even local impacts they've had? And sometimes there's a chain effect, like in a supply chain. If something breaks down, how would it? You have to play that out where that might affect things moving forward. Okay, next one here: consequences of agricultural practices. These are all over the book, really. This one is 191, and then 195 through 198, and then again 237 through 239, and they jump around on this. And some of these just seem a little bizarre. We'll get to here. So that didn't copy well at all. Sorry, that looked like a better copy than what I had there. I could be able to read it. All right, land coverage. We'll get to that in just a minute, though. I think the pollution goes without saying. Land coverage change. They most of this, sorry, it looks so bad, has to do, and the more red it is, the more it's changed, the more green. The less it's changed, most of the red is going to be actual agricultural. It might seem like the red would be urban, and some of it is, but then when you push an urban spot, you're also taking area that used to be forest land or maybe just wilderness in general, and you're turning it into agricultural land. That's what shows there. That really looks awful. Desertification. All right. That is exactly what it sounds like when they claim land. It's usually overgrazing that does that. And then the land adjacent to a desert, the desert spreads, especially because there's a lot of pastoral nomadism going on in these desert areas to start with. It's very easy to right there, hey, here's where it is. Let's start eating there, and then to your flocks that you are pastoralizing. Soil salinization, you get a lot of salt from the runoff and things. You irrigate a lot of stuff, and the salt from other places gets put into the soil, and then the soil is no longer able to grow as much because of that. The conservation efforts, that's the good news, kind of, sort of. I mean, it's kind of bad news that we had to have them, but a lot of the things where people are trying now to bring that back, well, that's an effect. If you wouldn't have conservation efforts if there wasn't anything to conserve. So it grows out of that. And all the test questions on that I came across were pretty much giving examples of things, where would this be most likely to happen, this or that. Didn't see a lot of questions about pollution. I don't think I saw any. Kind of forgot it was there while I was looking at those. Okay, altering landscapes. And this is just a straight up list right here. Slash and burn. We've been there, done that. We've been there and done all of these: terraces, irrigation, deforesting, draining the wetlands, shifting cultivation, pastoral nomadism. This is the second or third time for each one of these. And some the second time, some the third time. I literally mean the second or third time when I say that we've seen these. Just know also that this is altering landscapes. When we talked about them before, we talked about them more in the context of what they are or how they impacted something. We'll know also that all of these alter the landscape. How? That's why I put in some pictures. I think I've put in pictures of each one of these before. Again, same kind of questions. Impacts this has and where they might be. So, you'd have to know where swamps were. You'd have to know where slash and burn and shifting cultivation are, etc., etc. Okay. And then this one really was a head scratcher in some ways. I reached out to the people of the internet, and there's a lot of head scratching going on exactly what the College Board is after here. Not so much here. This makes sense. Changing diets. We referred to that earlier. Good thing about the agricultural revolutions has been food has been cheaper and more plentiful. People are able to eat more. In some cases, they're able to eat more nutritiously because they were starving before, or because they had a mono diet of just one grain crop or something. In some ways, people's diets are worse because of GMOs and the processing we do with it. But one way or the other, it's changing. Okay, got your mind around that one easily. This one has its own topic, a couple topics from now. So throwing it in here um, kind of steals the thunder from that. I know when reading about it, it mentions that women had to collect plants. And that was a role in this. So again, I'm literally going to scratch my head on that one. But we'll get more into that when we get to its specific topic. And this was the one where people were kind of like, including myself, saying economic purpose. Well, of course, it's an economic purpose. Where are you going with this? The guess of the people of the internet that teach this class is what the College Board is after here is some of the changes where people have gone to grow cash crops now, the subsistence farmers who are also growing cash crops. Of course, they're not growing cash crops as they sit there and starve to death. So I've always kind of wondered how that really plays out in reality. And then the pharmaceuticals needing people to grow things for the making of drugs. And speaking of drugs, the not pharmaceuticals, the people like when we looked at Afghanistan who are raising things to sell as mind altering black market drugs like marijuana or the poppy seeds for the heroin and whatnot. So that would be our guess where they're going with that. The test question, so that's where I got the plant collecting thing. I saw that in a test question, and again said, yeah, okay. So that is Unit 5, Topics 9 and 10. One more show to go, and then it's all steady.